If you can't control your emotions, people will control you. Most people misunderstand emotional detachment. They see it as coldness, distance, or a lack of empathy. But psychology reveals something very different. Emotional detachment is not about caring less. It is about gaining the ability to think clearly when emotions try to take control of your decisions, your relationships, and your sense of self-worth. Every day, countless people allow their emotional reactions to dictate how they respond to criticism, rejection, conflict, and uncertainty. Without realizing it, they give away their power to circumstances and to the opinions of others. The result is anxiety, emotional exhaustion, overthinking, and a constant need for validation. But what if the very thing you believe is protecting your relationships is actually making you more vulnerable emotionally? Welcome. This is a space for understanding the human mind and modern emotions, helping people better understand anxiety, relationships, and their inner thoughts. Today, we are exploring the hidden power of emotional detachment, one of the most misunderstood psychological strengths in human behavior. Throughout this video, you will discover why emotionally detached people often appear more confident, why they are less affected by manipulation and emotional pressure, and how developing healthy emotional distance can transform the way you navigate relationships, stress, and personal growth. More importantly, you will learn the psychological mechanisms that separate emotional awareness from emotional dependence. If you stay until the end, you will understand why some people remain emotionally stable in situations that overwhelm others, how emotional attachment can silently shape your decisions without your awareness, and why many individuals spend years trapped in patterns that prevent genuine emotional freedom. Because the real issue is not how deeply you feel. The real issue is whether your emotions are guiding your life or controlling it. And once you understand the hidden psychology behind emotional detachment, you may never look at your reactions, your relationships, or your emotional habits the same way again. Have you ever noticed how a single text message can change your entire mood? Someone takes longer than usual to reply, and suddenly your mind starts creating stories. Maybe they are upset. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe they are losing interest. Before you realize it, a situation that lasted a few seconds is taking up hours of your mental energy. This happens to millions of people every day, and most don't even recognize it. The problem isn't the message itself. It's the emotional attachment we develop to outcomes we can't control. When your emotional state depends on how other people act, think, or respond, you unknowingly give them power over your peace of mind. That's why a compliment can make your day, while a small rejection can ruin it. Your brain is constantly scanning for signs of acceptance, approval, and belonging because social connection has always been tied to survival. But in today's world, this system often works against us. Instead of helping us feel connected, it can trap us in cycles of overthinking, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. And what makes this even more dangerous is that most people mistake this emotional dependence for caring deeply, without realizing there is a powerful difference between the two. What most people don't realize is that emotional attachment rarely starts with strong feelings. It usually starts with a need for certainty. Your mind wants to know where you stand with people. It wants clear answers, predictable outcomes, and reassurance that everything is okay. The problem is that life rarely gives us that level of certainty. When answers are missing, the brain automatically begins filling in the blanks. It replays conversations, analyzes facial expressions, rereads messages, and searches for hidden meanings that may not even exist. At first, this feels productive, as if you're solving a problem. But something subtle begins to happen. The more attention you give to uncertainty, the more important that uncertainty becomes in your mind. Over time, your emotional state becomes tied to things outside your control. A person's mood, a delayed response, a change in behavior, or even a simple lack of attention can suddenly feel much bigger than it really is. What's fascinating is that this process often operates completely below awareness. Most people think they are reacting to reality, when in fact they are reacting to a story their brain has created about reality. That's why two people can experience the exact same situation and have completely different emotional responses. One person sees a delayed text and moves on with their day. Another spends hours wondering what went wrong. The difference is not the event itself. The difference is the invisible psychological pattern running in the background. And once this pattern becomes a habit, it starts influencing far more than emotions. It quietly changes confidence, decision-making, relationships, and even the way people perceive you without you ever noticing it happening. And this is where the effects of emotional attachment become visible in ways most people never connect back to their own behavior. When your emotions are constantly tied to how others respond, you start making small adjustments without even noticing. You become more careful with your words, more concerned about approval, and more focused on avoiding rejection than expressing yourself honestly. At first, these changes seem harmless, but over time, they begin shaping the way people experience you. You may hesitate before sharing an opinion, over-explain your decisions, or seek reassurance more often than you realize. The strange part is that the harder someone tries to secure acceptance, the less confident they often appear. People are naturally drawn to those who seem emotionally grounded, not because they are louder, smarter, or more attractive, but because they project a sense of stability. When someone isn't constantly seeking validation, their presence feels different. Their words carry more weight. Their decisions appear more intentional. Meanwhile, emotional dependence can quietly create the opposite effect. Others begin sensing uncertainty, even when nothing is said directly. Research on social perception consistently shows that people pick up on subtle emotional signals far more than they realize. Body language, tone of voice, hesitation, and even the need for immediate reassurance communicate information. The result is that many people unknowingly create the very outcomes they fear. The more they chase approval, the more distant it seems to become. And hidden beneath this pattern is a surprising shift that changes everything once it begins to take place. Your brain doesn't react only to what is happening right now. In many cases, it reacts to what a current situation reminds it of. That is why emotional detachment can feel so difficult, even when part of you knows you are overthinking. A delayed reply, a canceled plan, a cold response, or a moment of distance from someone important may seem small on the surface. But deep down, your mind can connect those moments to older emotional experiences that were never fully processed. The feeling isn't just about today. It's about every similar feeling that came before it. This is how emotional memory works. The brain stores patterns, not just events. Over time, certain emotional experiences create shortcuts in the mind. If you felt ignored in the past, your brain becomes highly alert to signs of rejection. If you experience disappointment repeatedly, uncertainty starts feeling threatening. The interesting part is that these reactions happen incredibly fast, often before logic has a chance to step in. That's why many people find themselves emotionally affected by situations they can't fully explain. They think they're responding to the present moment, when in reality they're responding to layers of emotional history attached to it. The mind is constantly comparing today's experiences with old emotional records, searching for familiar patterns. And when those patterns remain unchallenged, they quietly shape relationships, self-worth, and daily behavior. But there is one psychological shift that interrupts this cycle, and it begins in a place most people never think to look. The moment you start noticing these patterns instead of automatically following them, something subtle begins to change. The situations themselves may not disappear. People will still be unpredictable. Messages will still go unanswered. Relationships will still go through periods of uncertainty. But your relationship with those experiences starts becoming different. Instead of immediately treating every uncomfortable emotion as a signal that something is wrong, you begin to recognize that emotions are often information, not instructions. That distinction changes more than most people expect. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It's about creating enough mental space to see what is actually happening before your emotional memory takes over. When you stop reacting to every feeling as if it were a fact, you gain a clearer view of yourself and of others. You begin to notice how many assumptions were filling the gaps in your thinking. You see how often fear of rejection was shaping your decisions. You recognize that not every silence means abandonment, not every disagreement means disapproval, and not every setback defines your value. This awareness doesn't arrive all at once, and it doesn't instantly erase old habits. But something important starts happening. The patterns that once controlled your reactions become easier to recognize in real time. And when that happens, emotional freedom stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you quietly build through the way you see yourself, your emotions, and the world around you. Maybe the most surprising thing about emotional detachment is that it doesn't change the world around you first. It changes the way the world appears to you. The same unanswered message, the same difficult conversation, the same uncertainty. For years, those moments may have felt like proof of something. Proof that you weren't enough. Proof that something was wrong. Proof that you were losing control. But what if they were never proof at all? What if they were simply moments that your mind learned to interpret in a particular way? Most people spend their lives trying to change what they feel. Few stop long enough to notice the invisible process that gives those feelings their meaning. And sometimes, the greatest shift doesn't happen when emotions disappear. It happens when you realize they were never telling the entire story. Somewhere between attachment and detachment, between reaction and awareness, there is a version of yourself quietly observing everything, not trying to control every outcome, not demanding certainty from every situation, just seeing things as they are. And perhaps that's why two people can live through the same experience and walk away with completely different realities. Not because the world treated them differently, but because the mind that interpreted the experience was different. And once you begin to notice that, it's hard to look at your emotions the same way ever again. Before you go, take a moment and think about this. How many of your daily emotions are coming from what actually happened? And how many are coming from the meaning your mind attached to it? If this video made you see yourself or your relationships from a different perspective, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps this content reach more people who are trying to better understand their minds, emotions, and behavior. I'd also love to hear from you. If you watched all the way to the end, leave the comment, "I see the pattern now." That lets me know you stayed for the entire journey and understood the deeper message behind this video. And don't stop here. Click the video on the card right now and continue exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior. If you want to dive even deeper, open the playlist on your screen and keep discovering the patterns that influence your thoughts, emotions, relationships, and daily decisions. See you in the next video.